So as Tucker Carlson was saying, it's about the data. And since we're so focused on making sure that we have good data, let's talk about the data that we actually have. We're being inundated with assertions that we need to remain in this lockdown because it's the lockdown that's keeping us safe. That California has successfully flattened the curve doesn't seem to be enough for people. No, now we think we need to eradicate the virus and we have to stay in the lockdown until the threat is completely gone. Well, let's compare data in two different states. Let's compare California, a coastal state heavily dependent on travel and tourism for its economy, with Florida, a coastal state heavily dependent on travel and tourism for its economy. And let's see how the data matches up. So Florida, Governor DeSantis resisted the temptation to go into state of emergency all the way until April 1st. He then, beginning on May 4th, began to open the state up fairly aggressively to the point where now all of the state is opened up under his orders. Certain jurisdictions have said we're going to keep our orders in place, like in Miami-Dade County, places down south where the death rate is higher. But that's fine. That's their prerogative. That's the local governance structure that I'm advocating for. But anyway, so they were in lockdown, governor ordered lockdown, 34 days. That's all. 34 days. California, the governor declared his state of emergency on March 4th. You stay with me, camera guy? So, March 4th, all the way to May 12th, when Placer County became one of the first counties, first of four counties that were given the permission to accelerate into phase 2. Even though we remain in a much more stringent lockdown than Florida is right now, we're going to count May 12th, the day that Placer County started coming out, as the end of that. That means 69 days. 69 days that Florida was in versus California. This is California over here in blue. That California was in versus 34 that Florida was in. So you'd think, obviously, Florida, having spent half as much time in lockdown, is going to be twice as devastated as California by this. You'd think wrong. Florida's population, 21.5 million people. Florida's confirmed cases, and this is according to Google. This is just the little Google thing. All I did is I went to Google and I put in Florida coronavirus. I did the same thing for California. These numbers come straight from Google, but they were yesterday. So if you did it right now, these might have adjusted a little bit, but not enough to be statistically significant. So as of yesterday, the Google told us that Florida had 50,127 confirmed cases and 2,233 deaths on a population of 21.5 million people. Let's go over to California. California, 39.5 million people, 90,631 confirmed cases, 3,708 deaths. The key is breaking it down on a per 100,000 population to get a true apples to apples comparison. What does it mean in Florida in order to have, as I'm glancing at my cheat sheet right now, what does it mean in Florida to have this many confirmed cases on a per 100,000 basis? It means you have 233 confirmed cases per 100,000. What does it mean in California? 229. 233 cases per 100,000. Lockdown 34 days. 229. Lockdown 69 days. Deaths. What does it mean in deaths? 0.38 deaths per 100,000 in Florida. In California, 9.38 deaths per 100,000. That's it. One additional death per 100,000 with half the lockdown. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Right over here, These are the statistics that come from the CDC. According to CDC, from February 1 to May 16, we had a total of 68,998 deaths. Now, Johns Hopkins is reporting we're over 100,000. I have no idea where Johns Hopkins numbers are coming from, but this is Center for Disease Control. They said in this time frame, 68,998 dead. Of that, over 80% were 65 and older. 55,611 were 65 and older. Well, y'all are familiar with the old joke about Florida. Florida is known as God's waiting room, right? So what's the population of Florida that's 65 and older? 24.5% versus California, which is only 14.3%. Florida, adjusted for inflation by population, commensurately has 43% higher percentage of residents that are 65 and older. If you then take this death percentage times that gap, you have to come over here and add an additional 3 deaths to California in order to get a true apples to apples between California and Florida, adjusted for the age of population. And what you find out is after doubling our length of lockdown, after all this nonsense that we've gone through in not flattening the curve but destroying our economy, not only is there no statistical difference, but California actually comes out worse than Florida. Worse. Governor Newsom, it's way past time to end this man-made disaster. Call an end to the state of emergency and let us get back to living.